Welcome, everybody. My name is Michael. This is the Zen meditation. Is there anybody here for their first time? Oh, right on. Anything particular that brings you to Zen class?
I'm just interested in Zen Buddhism, and been reading on some koans, and I like the practice. So I like going to a meeting, and I saw it was going on tonight. I
Nice.
usually don't go to a meeting on Mondays, but I felt energized to try it.
Nice. Right on. Welcome. Generally speaking, in Zen, obviously the foundation is Theravada Buddhism, which is just based off Buddhist teachings, as all of it is. But with Zen Buddhism, there is a emphasis on sitting zazen. So we will sit for roughly 20-25 minutes. I'll share a few thoughts. If anybody wants to contribute anything, if has any questions about the practice, sitting, please, you're encouraged to ask us questions. I'll probably share something of my own if nobody wants to ask any questions or anything. And then we'll sit and meditate for another 20 or 25 minutes, depending on that. But just find a comfortable position to sit in, with your back straight, where you're aware of your position, where you're not too comfortable. You don't want to fall asleep. You can leave your eyes open, or you can close your eyes if it's more comfortable. And we're just going to breathe. The mind that's rushing and going all day will not stop while we're sitting. So the point of it is just to sit and be, as detached as we can from our thoughts and from that stream of thoughts and distractions. But distractions, noise, anything that's going around us is just there. That's it. It's there. And if there is a distraction or you are distracted, you just go back to focusing on your breathing. And it's just that simple, seemingly. So I also welcome to everybody online as well. If anybody has anything online to add, please do. And with that, we can start with the sit. So I'll read a little something just out of Thich Nhat Hanh, but share a few thoughts, and then if anybody has any questions or anything else you'd like to share, any questions about, their own practice, their daily practice, or anything of that nature. So this little chapter is called Habit Energy. So there's a story in Zen circles about a man and a horse. The horse is galloping quickly, and it appears that the man on the horse is going somewhere important. Another man standing alongside the road shouts, "Where are you going?" The first man replies, "I don't know." Ask the horse. This is also our story. We are riding a horse. We don't know where we are going, and we can't stop. The horse is our habit energy pulling us along, and we are powerless. We are always running, and it has become a habit. We struggle all the time, even during our sleep. We are at war within ourselves, and we can easily start a war with others. We have to learn the art of stopping our thinking, our habit energies, our forgetfulness, the strong emotions that rule us. When an emotion rushes through us like a storm, we have no peace. We turn on the TV and then we turn it off. We pick up a book and then we put it down. How can we stop this state of agitation? How can we stop our fear, despair, anger, and craving? We can stop by practicing mindful breathing, mindful talking, mindful smiling, and deep looking in order to understand. When we are mindful, touching deeply the present moment, the fruits are always understanding, acceptance, love, and the desire to relieve suffering and bring joy. But our habit energies are often stronger than our volition. We say and do things we don't want to, and afterward we regret it. We make ourselves and others suffer, and we bring about a lot of damage. We may vow not to do it again, but we do it again. Why? Because our habit energies push us. We need the energy of mindfulness to recognize and be present with our habit energy in order to stop this course of destruction. With mindfulness, we have the capacity to recognize the habit energy every time it manifests. Hello, my habit energy, I know you were there. If we just smile to it, it will lose much of its strength. Mindfulness is the energy that allows us to recognize our habit energy and prevent it from dominating us. I don't know about you guys, but I experience that all the time. Um, and a lot of times, the, it sounds easy, but it's really not. And just understanding what like practice is like immersion, where it's trying to make this practice into every aspect of our lives. And it doesn't mean that that's going to happen right away, but it's just having the intention, the right intention for that, and making the right effort to do that. I think that there can be initially a bit of discomfort because it is so easy to step into delusion and just shut ourselves off. We're not even thinking about what we're doing, what we're saying, and giving ourselves up to the habits we've had our entire lives. This is a lifetime practice, and just starting to do this, even for a short period of time, it might, maybe for some people, it feels good at first, but ultimately, it just is a real slog to do that, and it doesn't mean it's like that all day. I mean, when I always thought, like, when people talked about enlightenment, for example, it was always where you just achieved this phase of enlightenment where you didn't suffer anymore. But it's a constant practice. And in Zen, Dogen, who's kind of he lived from 1200 to 1253, and he's sort of the foundation of Zen teachings. Taught like practice enlightenment, and meaning that the two were interlinked. That if you're practicing, you're achieving some form of enlightenment just by the mere fact that you're practicing. But your enlightenment is in direct correlation to your practice. so that you can't just be enlightened. It's a constant practice. It's even when the Buddha achieved awakening, he still had to practice. He still had to deal with all of the life. It didn't just stop. But I think and another Zen teaching too is just sort of knowing the self. And so we all, in general Buddhist teachings, there's the self, and that's this idea that we have a permanent sense of self, which doesn't exist. And it's a concept of impermanence, that the world is always changing. And so the self is made up of opinions and likes and dislikes and just a perception of what we think we've always been. But that's not the case. The self doesn't exist. And that's really that's the anchor. We anchor to that, and that's our suffering, because we feel, we have clinging. We cling to what we want, and we don't want to live in, and then we want to push away what we don't want to deal with. So within that, there's suffering, because we don't want to let go of what we want to keep and hold on to. And so I think part of getting into this process of practicing Zen is to be, to not judge yourself for your present or your past, and to see, like, what is your suffering, what is yourself, because that's the very thing that's going to lead us to reality. We have to understand and kind of see and be just as clear about our delusions as we are clear about our enlightenment or moments of enlightenment. And that means just not judging ourselves, judging our practice, and just starting by making a general effort. You could be just meditating 10 minutes a day. And it's also putting ourselves in situations where we have to practice this. I've spent my entire life avoiding things I don't want to deal with. And so it's very natural that I'm going to do that. So having that awareness, putting myself in a situation where I'm more prone to practice the principles or take the actions of that within a Buddhist practice is important too, because we might not do it on our own, but it's a discipline, it's a practice, and we do it every day. But we might start small. One of the best things I ever heard is you start from where you are. That really helped me, because a lot of times I think, well, if I can't be X, if I can't live up to this expectation, then why even try? What's the point? And sometimes I still feel that way. I'll say something or do something that I immediately regret. And I'm thinking, why am I even doing this? What's the point? But that's kind of the thing, is you do it like you would show up to work. You show up to work when you're angry, or we do lots of things in life despite how we feel. A Zen or Buddhist practice shouldn't be any different. I'll stop there. Going to give a second if anybody wants to add anything or has any questions.
A question. So this is my first time here. I've been into this thing for Tuesday. So I want to ask some questions to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So when did and how did Buddhism start? And what is y'all's primary practice?
Sure. So about 2,500 years ago, he's, we call him Buddha. Buddha just means enlightened being, but it was Siddhartha Gautama, and he was, the short of it is he was a prince, and he snuck out with his, with one of the guards, and he realized that suffering exists, essentially. So he realizes that there's suffering in life, sickness, and then there's the suffering that we create ourselves, and then you have death. So, but he discovered that there's suffering, and he goes on a journey to become enlightened so he doesn't have to suffer. Out of that, so he becomes an enlightened being, and then he teaches Buddhist teachings, for the next, 45 years. It's a very short thing, but it's important to understand that there's the Four Noble Truths, and that is that dukkha, which is how it's translated, suffering exists. That we all suffer. So life is suffering. Second noble truth is the causation of dukkha. So the causes of suffering. So kind of like, when we come into the practice, if we can't understand ourselves, how we are suffering, then how are we going to understand, what the opposite of that suffering is, the reality? Buddhism in its essence is just direct perception into the present moment. It's just looking at things the way they actually are, not the way our perceptions tell us they are. So it's not a complicated thing, And the third noble truth is essentially nirvana, is enlightenment, is that you don't have to suffer. And the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path, and that's the way. And the root practice is sitting, like we just did, and then focusing on your breath. And so within Zen, especially, they call them like dharmas, realities. So you could have everything from some specific sort of reality you're dealing with, all the way up to the world, like to phenomenal reality, just the phenomenal world. But it's all interconnected within Zen teaching. And so when we sit and meditate, it's to bring us into that present moment and create some space. Like when we're sitting there breathing and focusing on our breath, we're not reacting the same way as if somebody cuts you off in your car or something to that effect, or somebody, family member, pushing your buttons. You're sitting there breathing and you're focusing again on your breath. So I think the idea behind that discipline, that practice, is to then hopefully that as you do it consistently, that would carry on into your daily life. So it creates this gap, this pause, where you can have some degree of wisdom and not reacting. And initially you might not feel that way, but at least by stopping the action that you would normally do, it's like the first step. So that's, I think, where sitting comes into play. But again, kind of what I read here too is that the practice is everything. So it's an awareness in everything that you do. So it's this kind of singleness of purpose, and having that in I'm not really practicing Buddhism if I go to work and then am not nice, or I doing things that I would regret to people at work. It just has to be constant. It has to be with people you love. It has to be people you don't like, people at work, customers, whatever that looks like for everybody, and it sounds simple, but I think it's hard, it's challenging. And that's why it is a discipline. It's a practice. You do it every day. I think that's, a kind of a short answer. I think there's a lot of, if you Googled it, you would probably get far more information than I'm sharing right now. But I think one important thing is that it's not a mystery. This is not a mystery. This is not meant to be challenging. It's not meant to be difficult, and it's not meant to be difficult to understand. It is direct perception into the present moment. It's just being aware that we live because of the sense of self, this permanent self. We live in suffering that we create for ourselves. And I don't mean like life suffering. It's like suffering caused by, opinions we have, or desire, wanting something that you can't get. There's all sorts of dis-ease and discomfort that we create for ourselves. And it's understanding that and seeing that this is delusional, this is reality. I think that's kind of the first thing, is like seeing what these two things are. And then it's about, through that awareness, creating the opportunity for yourself in that gap to start engaging in reality. But it takes a lifetime. I don't know if that helps, but I would, there's just Googling, and there's lots of information out there. And I think it's important to investigate for yourself. I would say this about one thing about Zen is, is a real tradition of Zen is that, you can have a question, but there's not always going to be an answer to that question. And what I mean by that is, by the time you feel you've answered the question you have, you'll have another question. And that's the journey. And, that's sort of the creation of wisdom, because you're answering your own question through practice, through experience, and that creates some wisdom because you've experienced that. And so it's not like, I can answer a question to a point, or I can say something that, and I'm basing this off my personal experience, not yours. So it's just kind of, it's that constant journey of discovering yourself, your Buddha nature. We all have that seed of Buddha within us. So especially in Zen, we're sort of uncovering that Buddha nature. It's always like you can't see the sun if there's clouds, so the clouds would clearly see the sun. But anyway.
I'm kind of curious. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious if you found it helpful if you've come across material that would suggest we develop or better understand, I guess, definitions of what we feel. Like if I think I feel angry,
Mm-hmm.
but then if I kind of reflect on it, I think, I might notice, oh yeah, maybe not angry, like fearful. I also notice, like, oh, my feet are cold. I didn't notice that before. I'll put on some socks and put on my feet. Now that makes me feel a little bit better, maybe a little bit less fearful. I'm hungry. I'm going to eat. Now I don't feel hungry. And then I can sit with that, just what I think is fear. And then when I actually look at the definition of fear, it's like anticipating the potential for danger.
Mm-hmm.
And if I feel fearful towards my boss, I think, why am I fearful towards my boss? Like, he's never saying anything mean to me. He's never threatened me. He's actually pretty easygoing. So do I really feel fear towards my boss, or is it something else? Like, is it beneficial to kind of really learn definitions of like emotional terms, like, or is it really anxiety, or is it really stress? Instead of just be like, oh, it's fear. Like it's like the catch-all. Oh, yeah. I just feel fear.
Yeah, I think there's so on the one hand, I mean, so if I answer that from a Buddhist perspective, there's a story, and it's just a man is shot with a poisoned arrow, and the person shot with the arrow is asking what kind of poison was on the arrow, or who shot the arrow, as opposed to what's the cure for the poison. So, there's nothing wrong with trying to understand these things. I think it's important too at one level. But at the same time, within the construct of practicing Buddhism, it's not so much about understanding everything. It's, as Dogen would say, opening the hand of thought, letting go of that. So the ultimate would be to not even think about fear. To just, like, it's there, it's a feeling, and you're aware of that, but it's not affecting you. If that makes sense. So that, I think, is the end goal, and what we try to do is to alleviate that anxiety and to alleviate that stress. That being said, there's parts of life where we do have to understand those things. So I think there's value in trying to understand those things. It's just not making it so those things are so overpowering that we don't understand, that we're not attached to that. So, I mean, you want to know that it's there, you want to understand that, but not feel this intense attachment to it where it's going to affect the way you feel and act throughout your day. Did you have somebody else have a question?
Yeah. I was wondering, with Zen, can seem kind of a little bit kind of cold, a little, you know, and is there a room for like compassion and loving kindness in Zen Buddhism also? Is that part of the teaching?
Yes. So when we, in looking at, if all we think about is ourselves in every aspect of our life, it's really hard to be, and if we think the world revolves around us, it's really hard to have compassion for other people because all we think about is ourselves. Within the Buddhist perspective, if the world is this interdependent origination, so everything is dependent on something else happening. Nothing happens in and of itself by itself, but that also means that we are all connected. And as we see that and are in touch with our own suffering and can be in touch with other people's suffering, that allows for us to have more of an awareness to be compassionate and empathetic, and give to people, be generous to other people. So I think everything about Buddhist teachings is compassion, empathy, kindness, all of those things. I think that's really the foundation of Buddhism. And if you were to, like reading about Zen, it's beautiful. Zen is absolutely beautiful, and it encompasses this interconnectedness that we have to the universe and to each other. And I think the whole purpose of this is to cultivate compassion and love and generosity for other people. So I think that's the entire purpose of it.
Or that for ourselves?
Well, I think it starts from us. So I think kind of what it's something I discuss because it's important for me to remember is exactly that, is that when we practice Buddhism, it's important to not judge ourselves as what we did was good or bad. It's better to look at it in terms of wise or unwise, meaning that like, okay, this was a better decision than that decision. But not good or bad. Like good or bad just doesn't exist within that. Obviously in life we have to make decisions and boundaries and all of that. But within the teaching, it's not about it's not about good or bad. So in seeing ourselves for what ourself is, for all of that, it's almost just seeing that that's okay, that's who and what we are right now, and that's okay. I think that the compassion does start with us when we do that. But yes, it's important. If you can't be compassionate to yourself, you're not going to be compassionate to anybody else. When people are cruel or it's because they're suffering. It's because they can't have compassion for themselves. They're not going to have it for anybody else. But I think the root of the practice is to have that compassion for yourself. We can just end with a quick sit. Okay. Well, that is it. I'm really glad everybody came out tonight. Those of you online too. Vicky, you want to read? Host will read something.
We opened the Dharmabumtemple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not teaching students. They are simply practitioners sharing an interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction. And our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30. They're doing a special Thanksgiving Day food redistribution. And that starts at 10 a.m. That's Thanksgiving Day. There's information in up above the shoe rack. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on the website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are necessary. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. If you people could help latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thanks for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again. Also, there's a community cleanup service and friendship. That's going to be a monthly practice. It's next week from 9 to 11. There's a group and they go out into the community.
What day?
Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. Sunday, this coming Sunday, and I think they just have a group and then they focus on a section of the community and clean up.
Cool.
Like that. So it's pretty cool. There's information right out here by the.
Nice.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you coming.